All right, welcome back into the Gamecock Central podcast, a quick cast, if you will, after the commitment of four-star wide receiver Rico Powers. I'm Wes Mitchell, alongside Chris Clark. Rico Powers, a kid that is currently at Hapeville Charter School in Atlanta, Georgia, a program that under Coach Gordon has actually put out a lot of talent. Puts out guys every year. You got J.J. Nigbare at South Carolina now that's from there. Some guys South Carolina's recruited in the past from there as well. But today it is Rico Powers who committed to the Gamecocks over a host of other schools. Was primarily most recently looking at South Carolina, Nebraska, and Arkansas. I think probably safe to say those were the final three, but did have a number of offers. He is a borderline Rivals 250 guy right now, not in the 250, but as I said, is a four-star, number 44 receiver in the country, number 29 player in the state of Georgia. And Chris, it looked at one point like South Carolina may or may not take another receiver. Obviously, they've decided they wanted to take another receiver in this class. They've got three, and we saw him a little bit in camp, and by all indications, I talked to Chad Simmons, who does a great job with the Rivals there in Georgia. By all indications, this guy's a pretty good playmaker that the Gamecocks are adding to their roster.
No doubt. And you mentioned the fact that South Carolina was looking, do we add a third wide receiver? Do we not? Well, something we know from covering this program is that the board is constantly evolving, constantly shifting, constantly reordering things, watching guys. And so bearing in mind that, there's been some high school football games that have happened already this year. So you have Rico in camp over the summer. You take a look at him. Our understanding, I remember we heard right after his performance that he turned in a really nice performance that day. And now South Carolina's been able to sort of track his progress throughout preseason camp and now into the 2019 season, his senior year, since he's been at Hapeville. So a little bit of a change in terms of his type of offense that he used to play in versus what he plays in now. He's blossoming, more as a receiver. He's a kid that's got pretty good size at 6'2". He's got some vertical ability, some open field ability. A talented pickup. I don't think that's ever really been in question with him as far as his raw ability. And I think it's a situation, Wes, where you look at it and, if you're South Carolina, you need guys who can play with the ball in their hands, play in space. So if you have an opportunity to add one, you go for it. And I think that's what they've done here.
Yeah, and I think you can look back, man. Rico Powers has liked South Carolina for a long time. And, I think Brian McClendon, who's recruited him and actually maintains a very good relationship at Hapeville Charter and with the staff there. Those guys have known McClendon for a long time. And, South Carolina, from what I was told, was very honest with Powers and that group about sort of where things stood. But they told him, hey, we want him to come to camp this summer. We want to get another look at him. And, athletically, that's never been questioned with Rico Powers. I'm actually looking at one point, he was the number 13 player in the state of Georgia in the rankings. He has dipped a little bit. But, South Carolina, it sort of went the other way. They kind of, continued to monitor him, wanted to see him in camp. They were very honest about sort of where things stood. They got him in camp, and, it seems like the ability as a wide receiver has really grown. Coach Winston Gordon at Hapeville, he does a great job getting guys ready for the next level. They've had him working with like a private wide receivers coach, and he was in a run-based sort of option offense prior where he was sort of that slot back type guy. So he's showing the ability to make guys miss and to make plays, but not really very experienced going out there and running routes and stuff like that. So this offseason, they got him working with the guy. He's worked really, really hard. We haven't seen him play this season, obviously, but, South Carolina decided he's a no-brainer take for them. They actually had him on campus. I guess we should mention that. They had him on campus Saturday for the Alabama game. And, he's always liked South Carolina. But, he's always really liked South Carolina, I think. But I think the visit this weekend is sort of what put it over the top because, he was going to take an official to South Carolina, and obviously he still will now. But I think at one point he was going to take an official before deciding. But I think it just checked all the boxes when he visited on Saturday.
Yeah, got to spend some time, hanging out with Luke Doty, some of the other commitments in the class, taking in the atmosphere, had a chance to talk to him. before we knew that he was going to be added to the commitment list imminently. And he raved about the visit. I think things have been moving in this direction, like you said. I think it was just a question of, were all parties ready at this time? And, originally had scheduled an official visit for December, which he'll still take. But just went ahead and was ready to jump in based on everything he saw. He's comfortable with Brian McClendon. He likes the offense. He likes the school. And South Carolina, as time went on, saw enough from him and saw what they wanted to see in terms of his progression as a receiver.
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned Luke Doty. From what I heard, those guys sort of hit it off. You had 13 or 14 guys that were already committed to South Carolina that were on campus for the game on Saturday. So you sort of had that camaraderie that Rico was able to sort of mix in with those guys and feel comfortable. And, I think it's a nice pickup. Anytime you get a 4-star playmaker, I think, you and I were talking off air. South Carolina's quarterback situation is in really good shape for the foreseeable future. Ryan Helinski, only a true freshman, as we all know. You've got at least 2 more years with him. Luke Doty's coming in, had a fantastic junior year, has started his senior year on a high note as well. You're in good shape at quarterback. Now, the key for South Carolina moving forward, keep putting playmakers around these 2 kids so that they can build the offense around them. So I think you look, holding on to Marshawn Lloyd, who was in for a visit on Saturday as well, is huge, but then adding some wide receivers. You already have Bobo Stewart, Daquan Stewart, Mike Wyman committed in the class. But I actually, even though South Carolina sort of overall numbers-wise was, I won't say hesitant, but they were making sure this is what they wanted to do and making sure this was a guy that could come in and make an impact. I really like the fact they decided to take another guy. I look around at South Carolina's receivers. I look at the rest of the SEC. I look at what Alabama was doing on Saturday. And, Brian Edwards is gone after this season, obviously. Shi Smith is a junior. You got to sort of restock that. And, we've heard a lot of good things about Xavier Legette. I think he's got a great future, big upside. But adding some guys in this class that can go make plays, I think is actually a pretty big need. So that's why I really like this pickup.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, you got to continue. When you look at the really good teams across the country, they're good at every position. But one factor is they always have really good guys in space who can make one-on-one plays, whether it's a jump ball, boxing out a defender, whether it's taking a short gain and making a guy miss or running through contact or hitting a deep ball. Things of that nature, some things like we saw from Alabama this past weekend. That's sort of the difference. And so if you can get a guy that you feel like can add some open field one-on-one ability, then it makes a lot of sense for your program. And South Carolina's got to continue, especially next year, as you pointed out. They're going to be missing a huge playmaker in Brian Edwards, and they're going to have to bring along some of the younger guys that they have on the roster fairly quickly. And so Powers will, have a chance to come in and be a guy who can potentially make an impact for them.
No doubt. Again, Rico Powers committing to the Gamecocks on Tuesday, that over finalists Arkansas and Nebraska. Want to thank all of our sponsors who sponsor our podcast, Terry Bishop Real Estate Team there in Columbia, a former Gamecock, Terry Bishop, Slotsky's Deli, who obviously we have our Slotsky's Deli Pick'em contest every week. And check out Gamecock Central right now. We've got a story with Rico with quotes. We'll try to post some highlights of him later on today as well. We've got an Inside the Commitment feature up. So plenty, if you want to learn more about Rico Powers, check out Gamecock Central and subscribe to us. If you want a free 30 days, try the code GCPOD. That'll get you on so you can read all of our content. For Chris Clark, I'm Wes Mitchell. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe, and we'll talk to you later on this week.